Morning, Bob.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I don't know how many of you have not turned the heat on in your houses either, but I'm not in the mood to do that. So the heat pump is on, but it's kind of far away. So I'm freezing.
Hence the
Yep. And pretty soon there's going to be a blanket coming over as well because it is not warm in here.
Nice. So
I
we're
think
still
all meetings should be started with too much information about me. Yes, we're still
Oh.
waiting for more people.
we need a couple more folks to join us before we can get started. Hey, Dan. Hey,
Yeah.
Jimmy.
Hi, Amy.
Hi, welcome everybody. We just have two of our leadership board members here. Thank you, Jimmy, for letting me know that Nate's joining you there in your office. And we've got a member of the public here. And Bethany, welcome for joining and eavesdropping in on our leadership meeting. It's great to have you present. I shouldn't have said eavesdropping. It's nice to have you.
Amy, it's called transparency.
I've learned about myself, including this morning in another meeting, that I am 100% transparent because every thought that I have inside my head is apparent on my face. And so there's no transparency there.
I have the same problem. Absolutely. If I'm not thinking like Dan, stone face, I'm just like, yeah, my emotions are very evident.
Yep.
Here comes Andrea. I believe Paul or Austin to or Susan to get us to where we need.
Okay.
And I guess part of the good news of this meeting is that other than minutes, we have no action items. So if Austin and Susan and Paul end up not coming, then we can still proceed with our discussions.
Okay. We'll give it one more minute because it really is just 11:01 and there's that weird Zoom thing where you don't want to join too early and then all of a sudden you've blinked and it's 1 or 2 minutes afterwards.
There's Paul.
Perfect. All right. Good morning. With the addition of Paul, welcome. That gives us quorum and we can get started.
Sorry to be late, Amy.
No, you are totally fine. You are totally fine. We are going to open the meeting at 11:02. Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
Amy, I was thinking that it may make sense to have commissioner comments before the executive session. I should have thought about that when I put this together so that so I would just say switching 7 and 8.
Okay, I'm at peace with that. Any objections? Hearing none, we will switch 7 and 8. And with that, Kim, did you have a public comment?
Yes, I do. I recommend John Moore be general manager for Green Mountain Transit.
All right, thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
Are any other members of the public? I don't see. And I'm guessing Jimmy's not hiding any others in his office besides Steve. Perfect. All right, so we'll move forward to the committee minutes from October 13th. Anybody have a chance to review those and want to recommend approval?
Motion to accept minutes as presented.
Thank you, Bob.
Second.
Thank you, Andrea. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Perfect, that's everybody. We will now move forward to discuss the VPTA legislative position. Clayton, you want to kick it off?
Sure. And just to remind folks that we're taking a break from our work on establishing a rule for service prioritization while Chris is out in Portland getting trained this week, and very happy for him to have another opportunity to bring back new knowledge to GMT. And so the first thing I wanted us to discuss today was how GMT wants to respond to the Vermont Public Transportation Association. At their meeting last week, they decided to officially endorse one of the revenue generating options that came out of Stephen Faubel's 2024 report. Folks may recall that came out in January of 2024. It was one of the studies required for the T-bill for fiscal year 24 to look at new revenue sources for public transit. That study identified 4 potential new sources of revenue, which were a increase in the vehicle registration fee, a utility fee, a fee on car rentals, and then a package delivery fee. And so VPTA last week decided that they wanted to officially endorse having a new package delivery fee that would go towards public transit. From that study, we know that it would raise approximately $3 million statewide if the delivery fee was 40 cents per package. And so one of the things that I think that we need to discuss is, at that rate, that probably is not going to be enough to fill the gaps that are going to be in both rural and urban. And so I just want to let folks know that unless they consider a higher per package delivery fee, that it won't fully meet our need. But I imagine that whatever the appropriate amount should be for that fee would be something that's discussed during testimony. And so really what I wanted to have our discussion here was if we wanted to focus on VPTA's recommendation, making sure that we stay in alignment with them. I think that there's pros for that, and perhaps have some of our work that we were looking at for countywide government take a back seat. And so I shouldn't say countywide government, countywide funding mechanism, whether perhaps that should take a back seat, whether it's something that we try to do, at the same time. Really just a generalized discussion here, and certainly interested in Austin's perspective as somebody very familiar with work at the State House, what our best path forward is. And so I can't help but remember just a few weeks ago, Austin was facilitating a discussion at the CATMA Summit where we heard pretty clearly from Senator Rom Hinsdale, her perspective that whatever new revenue source is suggested, that it have the backing of all of Vermont's public transit providers, and that we don't want to be recommending multiple things. And so wanted to bring that discussion here.
Clayton, before I let Austin kind of chime in, because this is his area of expertise, was there a discussion as to why that was chosen, a rationale?
I think that the rationale was because that there had already been some legislation last year introduced by members of the Transportation Committee that would use a retail delivery fee. So I think that they saw that as an opening that it had already been considered. I think that there was concern that the vehicle registration fees had just been raised, and that potentially that would be seen as politically non-viable to go ahead and raise that again. And I'm not really sure why the car rental or the utility fees one was not considered, although I know that there had been some concerns raised about both of those in the past, which I'm assuming kind of kept them from being suggested now.
Okay, thanks. Austin, would you mind weighing in?
Yeah, I guess I'm curious what folks would find helpful. I mean, I've heard that these things are kind of to some extent dead on arrival, but I don't work as heavily in the transportation space. I mean, they make sense in that there's a nexus, but if the chairs and the members aren't happy to see these revenue recommendations come through, then they're not likely. I know there's some talk around finding some more funding to kind of backfill deficits in the transportation fund, but that doesn't necessarily affect us. I almost wonder if yeah, I'll leave it there. I mean, I think that the folks who are coming up with this recommendation, they've done the legwork and they know better than I the feasibility of this. And so I defer to that. I just think this is gonna be it's a hard environment to raise any taxes or fees. It's a very difficult and constrained fiscal environment for the coming year anyway, as well. And you know, any route we take is going to be incredibly difficult or next to impossible. So if the VPTA folks have done a legwork and think this is the most feasible, I defer to them. But
okay, go ahead, Paul.
And I do know that Jamie Fian has been advising them and is, I think, very well informed.
Yes, it seems though we don't have a whole lot of choices here. It'd be a bad look if we were to be the outliers in the VPTA going forward. I agree, it's probably a short-term solution. I can't see them continuing to raise that package fee on 10 cents a year ad infinitum until we finally meet all the needs across the state. But certainly could happen for a couple of years. So it might get us through the next 2 or 3 if it happens.
Other thoughts? Paul?
Hi, thanks. Quick question. Sorry for being a little bit new to this, but what is the nexus between this conversation and the potential sales tax conversation? Does one inform the other? Are they unrelated? As Paul indicated, is one sort of a bridge to the other? That's sort of trying to get a lay of the land on that. Thank you.
To me, that is sort of the question here for today is whether we sort of pause the work on the sales tax, the countywide sales tax, and focus on this. And to get to Paul's point, and which is, I guess, building also off of Austin's point, with it's such a difficult political environment, I'm worried that if we suggest something that is not in alignment with VPTA, and then nothing ends up happening, that it will end up looking like we have undermined the chances for there to be success. And I'm worried about that, especially when I think that anything that we suggest, whether sales tax or package delivery fee, is unlikely to have a positive outcome. I think that it may be in our best interest to sort of stick with the crowd when it comes to this recommendation, and wait for a clear avenue where we can pursue the sales tax at another time.
Go ahead, Paul.
It just seems though that the legislature would be willing to kick this can down the road because they see, or going to see, that financially we're going to make it through another year. And the rural carriers have not yet come to their cliff. They may do that in a year or so. So it just seems though that it's going to be an easy case for people to make that, hey, it's not necessary, so let's not do it.
Yeah, I do think that one of the negative things about our better financial position is that it will give some legislators the opportunity to say, oh, well, you know, it won't be till fiscal year 28 that you have the real problem now, so we can hold off.
Paul and Alona.
Go ahead, Alana, first if you want.
Sure, thanks. So is there a read ahead on this? I'm a little fuzzy on the details of the VPT proposal. I guess I do have a question for Austin and also for the VTP proposal, which is is there already a fee on packages and is there a system in place to actually collect them, or is the fee going to be reduced through collection processes? And then my other question for Austin would be, if the transit agencies were to pursue a sales tax, is that something that would be opposed by the business community just on a gut level? I realize that no one's really discussed it yet. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, not speaking, really just without my day job's hat on, I think that us increase in sales tax would be rejected and opposed by most of the business community, and I think generally by a lot of Vermonters. I think a lot of us already see taxes really high. I think outside of our region too, I mean, thinking about if this were then a statewide discussion, every time sales tax comes up in the legislature, the communities on the border of New Hampshire get upset because it's just further differentiating them. And like I said, I think folks are feeling the pinch with inflation and whatnot. So telling them we're going to increase, the cost of goods by another additional percent is not appreciated. In terms of the package collection, you want to know how that would work, how that would be remitted?
Is there an existing package fee?
There's not an existing parcel fee, so that would have to be something that they'd have to stand up regulation on. That's something to take into mind too. So like something like this, they would create rulemaking that the Department of Taxes would have to do. That would likely take, a few months, if not a year, due to the complexity of it. And then it might have to go before the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules and go through approval. You're looking at, if legislation was passed, let's say, May 18th, it'd be, at best effective July 1st to start the study. And we're looking at, another 18 months before we see a dime from that, or longer when you consider the lag time between, the providers of that service collecting and then remitting it back to the, to the tax department for the legislature to be appropriated. So that's a really long way out. I mean, we're talking 2.5 years before we see any money from that fee. And that's not an argument for or against. That's just explaining the difficulties of this and the fact that we probably want to find some kind of spending in advance of that. I think the legislature would typically probably be interested in that kind of thing, but Yeah.
I wonder if there would be a fee collected by the tax department to collect the tax and stand up the whole system too.
You talking about the package fee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean they'd have to create the regulatory environment for that. You know, everything from the rules and regulations around how the service providers collect it, how they remit it, the timing. They'd have to create the software infrastructure to do that. They'd have to, you know, go through that whole process. So that would just take time.
And
So
I-
just to review,
Mhm.
it would be timely, it would time intensive, particularly in the beginning, resource intensive, at least for one state government, and would cost money to implement. And would any of those, and we wouldn't see funds likely for the first hunk of chunk of time, you know, Austin's saying a year or two plus. Is that
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just trying to
All right.
spell out, because I think sometimes it's
No,
difficult
I
to
think
think
that's
about
a-
like, you know, the legislative session likely at latest ends in June. You know, you're likely getting the bureaucracy wheels moving
Yep.
by fall. You know, best case scenario, if things go perfectly, you're collecting revenue, you know, in 2027, you know, by June of 2027. Again, like I think that's true of anything, especially like the sales tax perspective. That's going to be something that's very difficult. Like we have a sales tax that would be easier to jump on, frankly. You know, just because we have it existing, but some communities don't. You'd have to get the word out. You have to collect. You have to remit. You have to come back. But yeah,
But the state has it everywhere already.
yes, yeah. So sales tax would be the quicker and easier, I guess. Is the I'm not drinking enough coffee this morning. I'm not articulate. Sorry. I didn't think I'd have this many questions. No, but yeah, no. The sales tax would move faster than the parcel fee. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Okay. But you did well. You did well. You answered all the questions. Paul, Andrea.
So thank you. That's really helpful, Austin. So I guess I'm trying to just understand a couple of key things here. One, in the description that you had, Clayton, I don't recall you going, as you went through that list of what VPTA looked at, I didn't hear sales tax as part of their analysis.
No.
Based on what Austin is talking about, you know, if this is the route that is advocated for, then it is likely, you know, 2 years from now that it is rolled out, there will be very little appetite for some extended period of time to talk about some other funding source. So I'm sort of concerned at your beginning part, Clayton, is saying that this falls short of what is needed because it probably won't be revisited for several years if there's a thing done. And I'm curious, like, did VPTA know that this is sort of falls short on revenue goals and they just said this is the best we can get, or what? It sort of feels like we were introduced last month to this idea of what's going to be our legislative strategy, and now it feels like that conversation is ending before it even started. But thank you.
I think that this is the classic situation where, you know, we have multiple entities operating within the same space, and what they have recommended is that a retail delivery fee be the mechanism by which public transit is funded. Now, if they use the 40 cents per package rate that was used 2 years ago when this was studied, it would only come up with $3 million. If it were an 80 cent per package delivery fee, well, then it would, you know, come up with $6 million. And so really, whether it meets the need or not is going to depend on what the amount is. And so I think that it would be very important for us during the process to make sure that we, you know, point out what GMT Urban is likely to need, Because I do think that you're right. If we come up with a solution, or if the legislature believes that they've solved this problem, and then we try to come back and say, well, it didn't actually solve our problem, they're just going to tell us to go away. So I think that if we do go the pathway of endorsing the retail delivery fee, then we just have to make sure that it's more than the 40% as originally suggested in their study.
Okay.
And then, sorry, one quick follow-up. Did VPTA look at what number would be necessary statewide?
And so they did, and at that point in time, 2 years ago, they thought $3 million would be enough, statewide. I think that they probably, would not use that same number now. Keep in mind, this was a number that they came up with before they've had any service reductions that they've had to do, and the rural providers are hitting the fiscal cliff. They've already, reduced service. All of the providers have reduced service over the past year. So it's not, it's not that they haven't gotten to their cliff yet.
Okay. Andrea, and I think we need to kind of tie this up a little bit and then move on.
Yeah, I'll make it quick, but I don't recall the details of our discussion about a local option tax a couple months ago, but I do remember that we did have a conversation about the long runway for that as well. So I think just in sort of evaluating different revenue mechanisms, I think Austin, you sort of made this point towards the end, like everything is going to take a while. And that maybe shouldn't be as high of a factor. I guess philosophically, to me, the sort of question of what are we incentivizing by what we're asking is, aside from how much money it would raise, it does make a little bit more sense to me to say, like, if you're ordering things online, you're adding traffic to the roads with delivery vehicles. And I mean, maybe those delivery vehicles are delivering packages anyway, but sort of tipping the scale a little bit towards like local purchasing. And that just feels like a more coherent narrative to create, maybe. And I think there are also good reasons to ask for a local option task that sort of more specifically targets the communities that actually want the service. So yeah, I don't know, but I think just thinking about sort of what the argument is, maybe it does make sense to say, can we add more to a package fee? Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin.
Yeah, so again, completely divorced from my day job in this conversation here. Logistically, to kind of try to wrap up some of this, logistically, a package delivery fee is going to have to go through the transportation committee. That's going to be its committee of jurisdiction and origin. It will eventually go through a Ways and Means committee. And the finance committee and the Ways and Means committee, and the transportation committee and the other body. And then, with the sales tax, you are having your discussion is going to be primarily in Ways and Means. That's where the thick of it is. But just talking through the factors affecting the conversations in each, the transportation committee, they're very committed to the goal, or they're potentially more committed to the goal of funding transit, and they're looking at solely their world here and how to do this. The Ways and Means Committee is seeing an ocean of requests for different taxes and new revenue and all this. So there's an interesting component to the VPTA's conversation where they're really focusing more of the conversation through a transportation committee, at least initially, and trying to like tap a revenue source that the Ways and Means Committee might not be looking at. That's just another thing. And then just to recap on the implementation, sales tax implementation is much quicker because it is existing, but everything will at least be, from the first day of session at earliest. Sales tax, we are talking at earliest 9 months, and then per package fee much further out.
Okay. And I'm going to summarize and let me know if I get it wrong, but it sounds like VPTA went with a system that at least the way it was designed 2 years ago isn't quite enough revenue. And falls into the category, like all the other proposals, of not a lot of will to adopt new fees anywhere. And does also have a long time period. And so was their strategy and their choice? Theoretically, none of us, I don't know, Clayton, were you at the table? But we weren't at the table. So one can assume that there was some strategy involved. And, from my perspective, I don't see a lot of benefit in going against VPTA. And I don't see great enthusiasm in adopting any of these. And so it seems an interesting moment in time to jump on something that we're not confident is going to be successful or raise enough funds. But I think that's the hand we've been dealt. I also just, the sales tax, I think conversation was a little bit, I get confused. So I was thinking it was also a local way to help relieve the burden on our municipalities, right? So it was tied to, looking at assessments differently. So it is slightly different. Yeah, but we don't have to vote on whether we're going to go with VPTA. We're just discussing that today, right, Clayton?
Yes.
Okay.
And obviously, we're a few months away from the legislative session when we'd have to take a definitive position, and I think that standing behind VPTA's recommendation, while we also work to lay a groundwork for a more holistic sales tax that would include transit as well as housing, public safety, that's is the recommended approach that I would take, because I see one as the best political solution for now, which is aligning with VPTA, and the other one is the best sort of long-term solution.
Okay. Are we okay moving on? Paul, I think that was Paul Connor. I think that was kind of the answer to your original question, is how do those two things bridge? But we got there eventually.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I would just add, and I know I'm not a voting member here, but Clayton, to the extent that you're communicating with VPTA, I guess, either discuss this as a complete strategy and what puzzle piece would the package fee be, and or urge them to, not both update to today and look prospectively to the future, right? Like, we're not just trying to solve yesterday's or tomorrow's problem, but we're trying to make resilient transit for 5-10 years from now. So to the extent that you can encourage them to be thinking in that way, I'd certainly support that.
I did let them know that to have our most full-throated endorsement, it would have to raise the revenue that we need. So it's that they would have to consider something, more than the 40 cents.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move us on, knowing that this is going to be a continued conversation. How we fund transportation is a continued conversation, so no surprise there. We're going to talk a little bit about the rural recommendations. There's a read ahead that Clayton sent out to kind of prime the conversation, but I'll toss it to you, Clayton.
Sure. And so folks may recall from the roadmap that we put out in August, even though there's been some good changes to that roadmap and us not having to go through a big round of service reductions this fall. One of the things that we still need to work on is providing recommendations regarding the rural transfers. And so I'm going to share my screen and walk through a document that I started creating. Folks may recall that Amy ruined all of my fun by saying that I couldn't put it in resolution format. And so I think that, let's see if I can move this over to here. Do you all see recommendations for rural transfer of service? No.
No, right now here's the agenda.
All right.
But we did see it originally.
Yeah, I wanted to move it so that I would continue to look at you instead of away from you. There we go. Let's try it. That look
Yep.
a little better. All right. And so thinking, you know, who these recommendations would go to, you know, this would be sort of the target audiences. It starts off with recommendations because that's, you know, just what they are. We're not in a position to issue demands. Let's just know right off the bat that we are in support of the initiative to do the rural transfer, that we feel that it will be an improvement for our urban transit system. It goes into rider protections, which just essentially would be that it would be seamless for our riders. And I think that the good news there is that everybody's, you know, in agreement on that. I don't see any controversy there. For employee protections, one of the things that's been consistent for our board is making sure that our rural employees don't end up being harmed from the transfer, and really happy that TVT and RCT really has seemed to done a lot to make sure that our folks will have the same standard. When it comes to governance, this is where we're going to start providing some recommendations that may, you know, frankly, RCT and TVT may not want to adopt, but we've heard these both coming out of our retreat and separately, that when it comes to governance, there was concern that by this going to non-governmental providers, that there would be less transparency in RCT and TVT's operation. Specifically, they wouldn't have open meeting laws, they wouldn't have their records being public records subject to review the way they are now. And so I think some people see that as a step backwards. One of the things that we've also heard pretty consistently is the need to have GMT's rural commissioners be voting members as part of TVT and RCT's board, especially because TVT and RCT are going to be operating in areas that they're not familiar with, and our commissioners have been, you know, providing sort of oversight of public transit in these counties, sometimes for over a decade, and have that corporate knowledge. One item from Bob about when RCT does consider looking at a Grand Isle representative, having that somebody that would be adjacent to the Elbert commuter, because CIDR primarily operates south of there. We would have our commitment, just going back to the commitment that we received from VTrans, that funding would be available to GMT Urban because of the cost savings that would come about from the rural transfer. One of the things that I did hear input from Catherine on about this is that, you know, that whether we want this to be the GMT Urban needs to be held whole, whether the rural transfer saves money or not. And so I think that's something that we may want to discuss. One of the things that this is the commitment to the urban staffing is that, you know, obviously we're in difficult financial times, and VTrans and looking to reduce costs, has continued to ask us to consider staffing levels and whether we should reduce staffing when we do our rural transfer. And so I think that we need to hold to the findings of Stephen Faubel's study, which was that we are adequately staffed for a small urban agency, and that continuing to downside would just be a continuation of the past mistakes. Link service to me is going to be one of the biggest challenges that I see coming out of this. I think that we have heard pretty clearly that our urban commissioners have a priority for local urban service, and that we're going to need to come up with a way to determine the appropriate level of link service. I'm hesitant to have GMT be doing that, because I think that's going to set us up for political controversy at the State House. I think that this is an area where VTrans should step up and provide both the appropriate local match funding, knowing that our urban partners will share with that, but then also setting the amount of service so that the urban transit agency isn't determining how much service should connect to Chittenden County from rural areas. In regard to RCT and Cider, just a recommendation that they continue to exist as they are, and especially Cider has been increasing their capacity in amazing ways the past few years, and considered allowing them to do that. Recommendations here from Tasha about the partnership in the Stowe area. And then some recommendations so far from Catherine and Bob about operational long-term recommendations. I haven't gotten Christian's yet, and so they have not been included. But I'm going to stop the share. We can go back to as needed, but I want to be able to see you all. And so really, when I look at a lot of the feedback that we developed in July at our retreat, some of those items are actually like we've moved past those things. And so I'm very happy that sort of the plans with RCT and TBT have filled out. A lot of the things that people wanted to have happen have happened. And so this is leaving just the items that I have presented so far. And so very much interested in your thoughts there, especially with the approach on how we want to handle setting link service, knowing this is something that we'll be negotiating with VTrans and the other providers in the very near future. And any comments, concerns, things standing out, people want to spend time talking about?
Go ahead, Paul.
I just had a couple comments, Clayton. One is a little curious why we would be concerned about have a representative close to the Alburgh commuter, such a minor part of that whole service. And certainly we have a couple of experienced board members that maybe would serve on RCT. So that was a little curious, I thought. On the commitment to urban staffing, I know that's a little bit of a hairy issue to talk about reduction in staff, but I wonder if that paragraph could be modified a little bit. So I have a little bit about maybe towards where, we continue on the right size. We're always looking for efficiencies, kind of go down that path rather than saying, nope, we are who we are, we're not changing.
Mm-hmm.
That may not go over so well. And the last comment, if I can find it here. Oh, it's a new one on me, and I guess it's up to certainly RCT whether they want to start going across the ferry to Plattsburgh. But that sounds very problematic. There's 20 minutes right there out of your service time. But anyway, good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we can kind of break those apart. Bob, do you want to answer the first question about why we're not just saying Bob should be on the board, which is what I would say?
So, in fact, I'm going to answer a couple of Paul's. One is RCTs, the way they put members on their board is the board selects who the members will be. They're not appointed by anybody else, so the board selects the members. And my reason, and they're well aware, I've told them I will represent as long as they need me to, but since they are really concentrating on just Alberg as a service area for them, I would encourage that probably should be somebody from Alberg who is representing that part of the line in their region. So that's why I was encouraging that. The discussion about the southern part of the county, there was a time when Plattsburgh, the New York side ran a bus from Plattsburgh to the Plattsburgh side of the ferry. So what my long-term goal is to get them to put that back in place and for us to run a transit system from the ferry landing, not actually to go across the ferry. It's to allow people to do the walk across on the ferry. Right now, there's a ton of people that keep cars on both sides, so they're not paying for the actual ferry. They're paying for a passenger rate, which is a small percentage of what it costs for a car. And over 50% of the traffic that goes across the sandbar every day comes across the ferry. So my ultimate goal is still to have a way to get to Chittenden County from the southern part of the county, but a lot of that business would actually come from the New York side.
Okay. And then the middle question was about how how strongly we word that paragraph about administrative staffing, right?
And I think certainly what I would recommend is that we just add the findings of Fauble's report, and then that's an outside third party that everybody trusts, indicating that that GMT Urban is right-sized for its new urban mission.
Yeah, I think that would be a clear statement. I think it's also written a little bit more directly than I would speak. And so I picked up on that as well. But I also don't want us to, now that we're going to be a smaller organization, I don't want anybody to misinterpret that we need fewer staff. So I think the finding was really clear, and I like that it's included.
I think when it asks for VTrans, stop advocating. I think those are fighting words. So I would recommend you soften that.
Yeah, they are.
That's fair.
I wanted to make sure that Dan heard that here before we changed it.
Awesome. Ilona, Monica, and then Austin.
Great. Good morning. So with the caveat that I've not spoken with Christian about this, have had a quick conversation with Jim Moulton, and some of the things that he and I brainstormed that could be added from the Washington County perspective include a reference to CRVT, that GMT recommends TVT continue to work with CRVT in providing service to Washington County. Also a reference pertaining to TVT and the positive working relationships with the Mad River Valley communities, to include Altera, Mad River Valley Planning District, and Chamber of Commerce and local towns. So that is there, as well as where it says RCT in the Stowe community. And in terms of long-term operational recommendations, the biggie for Washington County would be to recommend that TVT leverage the currently set aside capital funds for replacement of the Berlin facility outside of a flood zone. So I think those were the major potential additions on the Washington County front, again, with the caveat that has not been run past Christian, and it was based on a very brief conversation between Jim and myself this morning.
Okay, thanks. Ilona, then Austin, and then I think we do have to move along.
That's okay. I feel like when I put up my hand, it was before we'd kind of resolved the staffing. Yeah.
That was my comment also. I I think it would be much better if it was phrased positively about what we want and, you know, especially because we don't have whereases, you might put something negative in a whereas, but I think this should be a positive statement about what we're looking for, and it should be more specific in like rather than realize the benefits of transferring. I think it should say specifically what staff capacity we're going for in terms of the things that we will be able to do by retaining the staff that was previously allocated to rural, to supporting the rural side of GMT. But I think that would be more powerful.
Okay, we're softening it. Dan, we're going to be nicer. What did you want to add?
No worries. Thanks, Amy. Just one comment. The VTrans reviewed this. We just want to say the tone, it might be more confrontational than maybe was intended. I know that VTrans is trying to get out from underneath the, you know, the notion that we have a confrontational relationship with GMT, and we don't want to continue that as the notion, especially as this gets in front of the legislature and those committees. And so we actually are working really well together, right? This rural transfer is actually going really well, and we don't want to have this letter take any tone that might, you know, disrupt that. And so, and we are happy to talk about the Link Express when you guys are ready to talk about it, because it's more than just the rural side. We're actually happy to operate Link Express service from the rural side, but we don't want GMT to lose out on the stick factors that you're getting. That's $500,000 per factor. So it's more of a funding, you know, for GMT than it is rural side. So anyway, I just want that to be real clear. It's not VTrans saying it has to be urban. We hope it's supporting urban by having you run the links and buying service from TVT, you know, and that kind of thing. It's very complicated, unfortunately. And so I just don't want this letter to be the last time the link is talked about. So.
You're
Perfect.
diplomatic, very diplomatic, Dan.
I like it. I like diplomacy. All right, Bob, you get the final.
But I wanted to come back real quick to the discussion on the funding where Catherine had recommended that we may not want to highlight just the saving from the transfer, but really making sure GMT is whole. She had brought up the effect of indirect charges and everything else that are going to change over time. So I kind of lean a little bit more to a broader statement of commitment to keeping it or making it more whole.
Okay. I'm sorry I took the fun out of using all the whereases, but I do appreciate my brain not having to flip through all those commas and phrases. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for having this discussion. And I love that we will have an opportunity to continue to improve it. So Clayton, final?
I will make the changes suggested, and we'll be back in a couple weeks for our November leadership meeting. And by then we'll have the Washington County items included, and hopefully we'll have something that for the November board meeting for them to approve.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. And because we flipped the agenda a little bit, are there any commissioner comments before we discuss the need for an executive session? Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, I just wanted to really quickly say, and I will also send an email, but we took the bus this weekend from the stop near our house, and the bus driver told us that the bus stop no longer existed at Adams Court on the Shelburne Road line.
Jimmy.
And that there's not really any indication of that anywhere. And so that was pretty confusing for us. And I just want to just zooming out, I just want to make sure it's like easy for people to ride the bus. And so that's sort of
Andrea, could you repeat again what the issue with the stops not being serviced?
Yeah, we got on the bus at Adams Court on the Shelburne Road line, and we didn't realize that the stop sign had been taken down, but there is no longer a stop, like a GMT bus stop sign there. but it is still on the app and on the website, and there's no like service change alert or anything. And so we were just, the bus driver was very nice and told us it was no longer a stop, but we just sort of, I just, want to make sure that that kind of thing gets like communicated to riders, so that people aren't sort of like, people go to the stop that they're used to. And so I just want to generally make sure that like we are telling people, making it easy for people to ride the bus. So
I appreciate that. And Jimmy's face is thinking it through. And I know Jamie, I can't see her face, but I think there's probably a lot. So Andrea, thank you for bringing it up. I think, perhaps an offline conversation, Jamie, Jimmy, maybe Andrea conversation, figure out what happened. And then the point taken of always those changes should be as obvious as possible, so that people aren't waiting for a bus that doesn't come. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Any other additional comments? Okay. So the next item on our agenda is a potential executive session to discuss a personnel issue, which does not require a finding. But from my perspective, I think probably included in the conversation about our general manager would be board members, leadership team members. I don't know if all non-leadership team members want in. And I do not even think Clayton, you're needed to be there. I don't know if I'm missing anything.
So I'm going to make you our host.
Okay.
And if you could just send a message to Ash or Jamie with when the meeting ended and who were the first and seconds to come out of executive session and end the meeting.
Great. And I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to look at Paul, who's much more experienced, because I was looking at Alona's confused face and I realized that perhaps just leadership team members versus all board members was a distinction I didn't need to make. I don't know, Paul, what do you think?
I would think that they'd be welcome to come, but if there's any kind of a recommendation or a vote, it should be just from leadership.
Okay. And now I see that she's left the meeting, so I have now offended her, but I will figure that out.
I think she was very angry.
All right. So does someone want to make a motion for leadership and other board members for an executive session to discuss general manager personnel?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you both. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. I will check the timing.
You have recording or something that needs to be turned off, or transcripts or whatever?
I can do that. Bye, everybody. Thank you for your time. I'll stop recording. We have exited executive session at 12:16. Motion by Paul, second by Bob. There is no action taken. And it is 12:17. I think I said that. Do we have any additional, or there's nothing additionally on the agenda? Is there any further comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Bob. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all so much for your attention and time and kindness.
Thank you, Amy.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Aye.